Leviticus 4, Part 1, The Blood Code of the Master Engineer. Peace and blessings, family. Welcome back to another fire-filled lesson here on Yah First Ministries. You are tuning in with your brother Bet Sadeh Lamed Aleph Lamed, Basaliel for short. And I am fired up today because the Father has unsealed something that most of these punk-ass pastors wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. If you are here, it's because you're tired of the religious milk. You're tired of the just love everybody gospel that has kept our people sleeping while the world burns. You are here for the meat, and today we are serving it raw. In this episode, we are cracking open the technical manual, the book of Yik Resh Aleph, Leviticus for those unaware of the Hebrew, specifically chapter 4. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, brother, why are we looking at animal guts and blood sprinkling? That's old school. Listen to me. What you call ceremonial law is actually a high-level engineering schematic. We are going to look at the sin offering, but not through the lens of some dusty Sunday school. We are going to look at it through the lens of the master engineer. We are going to decode the frequency of blood, the pressurized containment of the sanctuary, and the biometric authentication required to interface with the Most High. This is a 5-part journey, family. Today, in part 1, we are laying the foundation. We're talking about the sin of ignorance. We're going to find out why not knowing the law doesn't save your ass from the consequences. We're going to look at the specific hardware requirements for the anointed priest and why the blood has to hit the veil 7 times. By the time we get to part 5, you're going to see that Yod He Wah Shin Ayin, Jesus, didn't just die for your sins in some abstract, emotional way. He executed a precision system override that was documented right here in the blueprints. So, get your heads out of your asses, grab your notebooks, and let's dive into the mind of the engineer. Verses 1 through 2, the system error of ignorance. Leviticus 4:1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Leviticus 4:2. Speaking to the children of Israel, saying, If a soul shall sin through ignorance against any of the commandments of the Lord concerning things which ought not to be done, and shall do against any of them. Look at the very first thing Yah says to Mem Shin He. He doesn't start with, if you intentionally rebel. He starts with ignorance. This is the first lie we have to demolish. The modern church loves to tell you God knows your heart, as if your good intentions bypass the structural integrity of His law. That is absolute bullshit. Yah is the master engineer. If I build a bridge and I'm quote-unquote ignorant of the laws of gravity or the load-bearing capacity of steel, does the bridge stay up because I had a quote-unquote good heart? Hell no. The bridge collapses and people die. The law is a technical specification for reality. When you quote-unquote sin through ignorance, you have introduced a system error into the environment. You have violated the operating protocol, and the system doesn't care if you meant to do it or not. The damage is done. The word ignorance here in the Hebrew is shigaga. Let's break that down in the Paleo-Hebrew. Shin, teeth/consume, plus gimel, camel/lift up/carry, plus gimel, camel/lift up/carry, plus he, man with arms raised/reveal/behold. Shin, the power that consumes or destroys. Gimel, the act of carrying or lifting a burden. The revelation of what is happening. Literally, shigaga is a consuming burden that is revealed when you carry out an action without the proper instruction set. It's a burden you didn't know you were carrying until the system starts failing. This establishes the doctrine of absolute accountability. Israel, you are scattered across the 4 corners of this flat earth, from the projects in America to the favelas in Brazil to the islands of the Caribbean. And you've been told that because you didn't know you were Israelites or didn't know the Sabbath was Saturday sunrise to sunset, that Yah is just gonna give you a pass. That is a lie from the pit of hell. Ignorance is why our people are being slaughtered in the streets. Ignorance is why our families are falling apart. You are violating the code, and the sin offering is the only way to patch the software. This aligns with Hosea chapter 4, verse 6. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. He didn't say they were destroyed because they were evil or hateful. They were destroyed because they were stupid. They didn't have the manual. And because they didn't have the manual, they kept hitting the self-destruct button. Verses 3 through 4. The priest as the core processor. Leviticus 4:3. If the priest that is anointed do sin according to the sin of the people, then let him bring for his sin, which he hath sinned, a young bullock without blemish unto the Lord for a sin offering. Leviticus 4:4. And he shall bring the bullock unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation before the Lord, and shall lay his hand upon the bullock's head, and kill the bullock before the Lord. Now we get into the hardware. Yah starts with the anointed priest. Why? Because the priest is the core processor of the nation. If the processor has a bug, the whole system is corrupted. The text says, according to the sin of the people. This means when the leadership is compromised, the entire network is infected. Think about these lying-ass preachers today, these anointed men of God who are out here chasing bags, sleeping with the choir, and teaching you that the law is done away with. They are sinning according to the sin of the people. They are leading you straight into a system crash. And Yah says the requirement for them is higher. They have to bring a young bullock without blemish. A bullock is a massive amount of energy. In engineering terms, this is a high-capacity power source. To fix a major system error in the core processor, you need a massive discharge of life force energy. Look at the protocol in verse 4. Lay his hand upon the bullock's head. This is not a religious gesture. This is data transfer. In the master engineer setup, the hand represents the work and the identity. By laying the hand on the head, the priest is executing a biometric link. He is transferring the sin, the corrupted code, from his own system into the bullock, the sacrificial hardware. Let's break down the word for priest. Ko-he-nun. The vessel that receives. The manifestation of the signal. Nun, the transmission of the life force. The priest is the vessel that allows the revelation of life to continue for the people. If he is unclean, the signal is blocked. He has to kill the bullock before Yah. This is determination of the surrogate hardware. The bullock takes the crash so the priest doesn't have to. This is exactly what Yad, He, Wah, Shin, Ayin did for us. He was the bullock without blemish. He was the perfect hardware that took the data transfer of our collective system errors. But don't get it twisted. This isn't for the whole world. This protocol was given only to the children of Israel. If you aren't part of the bloodline, you don't even have access to the server. Verses 5 through 6. The frequency of 7. Leviticus 4:5. And the priest that is anointed shall take of the bullock's blood and bring it to the tabernacle of the congregation. Leviticus 4:6. And the priest shall dip his finger in the blood and sprinkle of the blood 7 times before the Lord, before the veil of the sanctuary. Now we're getting into the signal broadcast. The priest takes the blood, which is the life code, Leviticus 17:11, and he brings it into the tabernacle. The tabernacle is a pressurized containment vessel. It is a specialized environment designed to hold the presence of the Most High. You can't just walk in there with your dirty ass self. You need the blood to stabilize the frequency. Verse 6 says he sprinkles it 7 times. Why 7? In the engineer's math, 7 is the number of system completion. It is the frequency of the Sabbath. It is the full cycle of the Paleo-Hebrew double letters that govern the planetary circuits. By sprinkling the blood 7 times, the priest is performing a full system reset. He is recalibrating every layer of the sanctuary's atmosphere to match the frequency of Yah. He does this before the veil. The veil is the firewall. It is the barrier between the holy place, the processing unit, and the Holy of Holies, the core processor/throne room. The blood is the access key. Without the blood hitting that firewall at the right frequency, 7 times, the connection is denied. Let's look at the word for veil. Pa-ra-ket, the edge or opening. Resh, the primary authority. The covering or containment, the sign of the agreement. The veil is the mouth of the head that covers the covenant. It is the interface. If you try to bypass this interface without the blood code, you will be terminated. This is why the high priest had to have a rope tied to his leg. If his frequency didn't match, the engineer would short-circuit his ass right there in the throne room, and they'd have to drag his dead body out. Do you see the engineering here? This isn't about feeling good. This is about physics. This is about how a corrupt, low-frequency human system can interface with a high-frequency, holy divine system without being vaporized. Verse 7, the horns of the altar and the grounding. Leviticus 4:7, and the priest shall put some of the blood upon the horns of the altar of sweet incense before the Lord, which is in the tabernacle of the congregation, and shall pour all the blood of the bullock at the bottom of the altar of the burnt offering, which is at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. Look at the 2-step process here. First, the blood goes on the horns of the altar of sweet incense. The horns are the antennas. In any structural design, the horns or corners are the points of highest resonance and power. By putting blood on the horns of the incense altar, the priest is authenticating the upload. The incense represents the prayers and the signal being sent up to Yah. The blood on the horns ensures that the signal is signed with the correct biometric ID. It's like a digital signature on an encrypted message. But then, look at the second step. Pour all the blood at the bottom of the altar of the burnt offering. This is the grounding. In electrical engineering, if you have a massive discharge of energy, like the life force of a bullock, you have to have a ground to dump the excess current so the system doesn't explode. The base of the altar of burnt offering, which sits at the door, the input-output port, acts as the system's ground. The blood, the life force, is poured out at the base to return the energy to the earth, completing the circuit. This aligns with Devarim, Deuteronomy, chapter 12, verse 24. Thou shalt not eat it. Thou shalt pour it upon the earth as water. Yah is telling you, don't you dare try to consume that energy yourself. You are not engineered to handle that voltage. Ground it. Israel, we are the ones who were given this technical manual. We are the ones who were supposed to be the kingdom of priests, the technicians of the earth. But instead, we let the serpent seed take our manual, rename it the Bible, and turn it into a religious book that makes us weak and passive. They studied the 7 sprinklings and turned it into their own occult rituals. They studied the horns of the altar and built their own power structures. It's time to wake up. We are looking at the mechanics of how the Most High deals with the bugs in our system. If you think you can just believe and ignore the technical specifications of the Torah, you are in for a gruesome awakening. When Yah's judgment drops in his coming, family, it won't be a polite conversation. It will be a total system purge. In part 2, we're going to get even deeper. We're going to talk about the fat and the kidneys. We're going to find out why Yah wants the inwards and why the skin of the bullock has to be burned outside the camp. We're going to see the waste management protocols of the master engineer. Don't go anywhere. If you thought the blood was deep, wait until we start talking about the dung. Now in part 2, we are going to get into the material science of the sacrifice and why the fat is the engineer's portion. Part 2, the fat, the kidneys, and the waste management protocol. We just saw the priest authenticate the system upload with blood on the horns and ground the excess energy at the base of the altar. Now, we have to look at what happens to the internal components of the sacrificial hardware, because Yah is about to show us how he extracts the quote-unquote energy reserves and disposes of the quote-unquote corrupted data outside the camp. Verses 8 through 10, extracting the divine energy reserve. Leviticus 4:8, and he shall take off from it all the fat of the bullock for the sin offering, the fat that covereth the inwards, and all the fat that is upon the inwards. Leviticus 4:9, and the two kidneys, and the fat that is upon them, which is by the flanks, and the caul above the liver, with the kidneys, it shall he take away. Leviticus 4:10, as it was taken out from the bullock of the sacrifice of peace offerings, and the priest shall burn them upon the altar of the burnt offering. Yah is a master engineer, and in this biological machine we call a bullock, the FAT is not just grease. Fat is stored potential energy. It is the battery pack of the organism. When Yah commands that the fat be taken off and burned on the altar, he is demanding the high-density energy output of the sacrifice. He doesn't want the lean meat for the sin offering fire. He wants the fuel that creates the most intense heat and the specific frequency of the sweet savor. Let's look at the word for fat in Hebrew, sheleb, to separate or protect. Lamed, staff / authority / instruction, to direct or lead. Bet, house / tent / inside, the household or the interior. In Paleo-Hebrew, cheleb is the separated authority of the house. It is the best part, the reserve, the strength hidden inside. When you give Yah the cheleb, you are giving him the very best of your internal resources. Then he mentions the kidneys. Why the kidneys? In the technical manual of the human and animal body, the kidneys are the filtration system. They process the fluids, balance the electrolytes, and manage the pressure of the circulatory system. But in the spiritual blueprint, the kidneys, Kel Yah, represent the seat of desires and emotions. Break down kidneys. To receive. Lamed, staff / authority, to direct. The action. The bridge. The signature. The kidneys are the vessels that direct the work of the covenant. This is why Yah says in Yad Resh Mem, Yad Hey Wah, chapter 11, verse 20, that he tries the reins and the heart. He is checking your internal processing unit. He's looking at your filtration. What are you letting into your spirit? What are you filtering out? When the priest takes the kidneys and the fat upon them, he is presenting the animal's intentions and energy to be consumed by the divine fire. This is a thermal energy conversion. The fat and kidneys are placed on the altar of burnt offering to be converted from physical matter into smoke, a frequency broadcast that ascends to the throne. If the fat is blemished or the kidneys are diseased, the frequency is off. The engineer rejects the signal. This aligns with Wayik Resh Aleph, Leviticus chapter 3, verse 16, which explicitly states, all the fat is the Lord's. You don't get to keep the best energy for yourself. You don't get to keep the battery for your own use. You give the master engineer his due, or the whole system stays in a state of error. Modern Christianity tells you that Jesus did it all, so you can keep your fat, your best time, your best money, your best energy for your own damn self. That is a lie. If the anointed priest had to give up the fat of the bullock to fix a sin of ignorance, what makes your arrogant ass think you can ignore Yah's requirements and still get a pass? You are stealing the engineer's fuel, and that shit is going to get you terminated. Verses 11 through 12, the waste management protocol. Leviticus 4:11, and the skin of the bullock and all his flesh, with his head and with his legs and his inwards and his dung. Leviticus 4:12, even the whole bullock shall he carry forth without the camp unto a clean place where the ashes are poured out, and burn him on the wood with fire. Where the ashes are poured out shall he be burnt. This is where it gets graphic, and this is where the polite religious people start to gag. Yah is not playing games. After the blood is sprinkled and the fat is burned, you are left with a carcass. You have the skin, the meat, the head, the legs, the guts, and the dung. The dung, perish, is the system waste. It is the byproduct of the biological machine that has no further use in the holy environment. Yah is the God of order and sanitation. He is the master engineer of the environment. You cannot have rotting flesh and shit sitting in the middle of the tabernacle of the congregation. He commands that the whole bullock, everything that wasn't burned on the altar, be carried without the camp. This is the external disposal protocol. The camp is the protected network. It is the inside of the firewall. When a sin has occurred, the hardware that carried that sin becomes toxic. It is unclean. It has to be removed from the proximity of the people so the infection doesn't spread. Think about this in terms of modern tech. When a server is compromised by a virus, what do? You quarantine it. You take it off the network. You move it to a quote-unquote sandbox, or you wipe the drive. Yah is wiping the drive. He sends the carcass to a quote-unquote clean place where the ashes are poured out. Wait, why a clean place for the trash? Because the ashes, Ishiret, are the final state of matter after the fire has done its work. The fire purifies. Even the dung, when burned to ash, is no longer shit. It is carbon. It is neutralized. Let's break down dung, Peresh Hay. The exit, the source, the manifestation. Dung is literally what is revealed at the exit of the source. It is the manifestation of what the body couldn't use. In your life, your dung is your gossip, your pride, your bullshit excuses. Yah says, take that shit outside the camp and burn it. This has a massive prophetic implication. Where was Yod Hey Wah Shin Ayin killed? He was taken outside the gate. He was the whole bullock for the nation. He carried the dung of our transgressions, the filth of our disobedience, and he was burned with the fire of Yah's wrath outside the holy city. Look at Hebrews chapter 13, verses 11 and 12. For the bodies of those beasts whose blood is brought into the sanctuary by the high priest for sin are burned without the camp. Wherefore, Yod Hey Wah Shin Ayin also, that he might sanctify the people with his own blood, suffered without the gate. The engineer doesn't change his protocols. If the sin is great, the disposal must be total. You don't get a pretty sacrifice. You get a bloody, stinking, shit-filled carcass being dragged through the dirt and set on fire in a wasteland. That is the price of your ignorance. That is the cost of breaking the code. You Negroes better listen. You think your Sunday best and your hallelujah covers the fact that you are living in total violation of the dietary laws, the Sabbath, and the sexual purity laws? You are full of dung, and unless you apply the blood of the true bullock, you are going to be burnt without the camp when the master engineer comes to clean his house. He is going to purge the system, and anything that doesn't match the holy frequency is getting dragged to the ash heap. Verse 13, the collective system failure. Leviticus 4:13. And if the whole congregation of Israel sin through ignorance, and the thing be hid from the eyes of the assembly, and they have done somewhat against any of the commandments of the Lord concerning things which should not be done, and are guilty. Now we move from the core processor, the priest, to the entire network, the whole congregation of Israel. This is a mass system failure. This is what happens when the ignorance we talked about in part 1 becomes systemic. Notice the phrase, and the thing be hid from the eyes of the assembly. This is hidden corruption. This is a rootkit. In computer science, a rootkit is a type of malicious software designed to hide the fact that the system has been compromised. It sits in the background, running its bullshit processes while the user thinks everything is fine. Israel, this is us. For 2,000 years, our identity was hid from the eyes of the assembly. We thought we were Gentiles. We thought we were Africans. We thought we were Black Americans. We were sinning through ignorance because the serpent seed scribes installed a rootkit in our history books and our Bibles. They hid the commandments from us. They told us the law was done away with. But look at what Yah says, and are guilty. The engineer doesn't care if you were deceived. The engineer doesn't care if the eyes of the assembly were blinded by the white Jesus lie. If you have done somewhat against any of the commandments, the guilt, Ashamim, is logged in the system. Let's break down guilty, Ashamim. Aleph, ox, /strength, /leader, the primary force, the destruction, the overwhelming flood. To be guilty is to have the strength of destruction and chaos active in your life. It is a state of system instability. When the whole congregation is in this state, the entire nation is under a judgment protocol. This is why Deuteronomy chapter 28 happened to us. We were guilty of breaking the covenant, even when we forgot who we were. The ships were the disposal trucks carrying us outside the camp of our own land into the ash heaps of the nations. You think you can just pray your way out of a system error? No, you have to acknowledge the known sin. You have to find the bug and apply the patch. This aligns with Wayik Resh Aleph, Leviticus chapter 5, verse 17. And if a soul sin and commit any of these things which are forbidden to be done by the commandments of the Lord, though he wished it not, yet is he guilty and shall bear his iniquity. Though he wished it not, even if he didn't know. If you eat pork, your DNA is being corrupted. If you break the Saturday Sabbath, sunrise to sunset, your frequency is being misaligned. If you sleep with a woman on her set apart time, you are introducing chaos into your seed. Yah doesn't care if your pastor told you it was okay. Your pastor is a lying son of a bitch who is also guilty. The system is crashing, and the only way out is the national sin offering. Verse 14, the activation of the patch. Leviticus 4:14. When the sin which they have sinned against it is known, then the congregation shall offer a young bullock for the sin and bring him before the tabernacle of the congregation. When the sin is known. This is the discovery phase. In engineering, you can't fix a problem until you diagnose it. The moment the ignorance is removed, the moment the light hits the rootkit, the congregation is required to act. Israel is waking up right now. The sin is becoming known. We are realizing that we've been worshiping a pagan god on Sunday. We are realizing we've been eating abominations. We are realizing we've been whoring after the nations. So what is the requirement? Another young bullock. To fix a national system error, you need a national level energy discharge. You can't fix a whole congregation problem with a single person solution. This is why the individualistic gospel of Christianity is so dangerous. They tell you it's just about you and God. Bullshit. Yah dealt with Israel as a corporate entity. He dealt with us as a body. If the body is sick, the body must offer the sacrifice. The bullock is brought before the tabernacle. It is brought to the input port. It is brought to the place where the master engineer dwells. You don't fix the system in your backyard. You don't fix the system in your heart. You fix the system at the source. Let's look at the word known, yada, the action. Dalit, door/path, the entrance. Ain's a perception. When the sin is known, yada, it means the hand has entered the path of sin. You have experienced the truth. You have seen the source code. Once you see the code, you are responsible for the patch. If you see the truth of the Sabbath and you keep going to church on Sunday, you are no longer sinning in ignorance. You are now a system saboteur. You are intentionally introducing malware into the nation, and Yah has a very specific disposal protocol for saboteurs. He will drag your ass outside the camp and burn you with the wood of his fury. He will let the heathen nations grind you into the dust until there is nothing left but ash. Do you feel the urgency yet? We are in the discovery phase of the end times. The sealed scrolls are open. The technical manual is being decoded. The master engineer is looking at the tabernacle, his people, and he is seeing a whole lot of dung and very little blood. He is looking for the, quote, elders to step up. He is looking for the priests to stop lying. He is looking for a congregation that is willing to drag their bullock to the door and say, Father, we fucked up. We were ignorant, but now we see. Apply the blood, burn the fat, ground the energy, fix our system. But instead, what do I see? I see Negroes arguing about beards and fringes. I see Negroes trying to keep the old covenant rituals like they're playing dress up, while their internal processing unit is still full of pagan malware. You are putting fringes on a crashed system. It doesn't work. You need the blood of the anointed one to recalibrate your frequency. You need the fire of the altar to consume your fat. In part 3, we are going to see what the elders have to do. We're going to see the laying on of hands for the whole nation. We're going to see how the blood has to be handled when the entire network is on the line. If you think the priest's sin was a big deal, wait until you see what happens when the whole house of Israel has to answer to the engineer. Now in part 3, we are going to look at the national atonement and the role of the quote-unquote elders as the system administrators of the covenant. Part 3, the elders, the network, and the national system restore. Now that we've diagnosed the systemic infection of the congregation, we have to look at the protocol for the elders, because Yah's about to show us who is actually responsible for the maintenance of the national firewall. Verses 15 through 16, the biometric handshake of the elders. Leviticus 4:15, and the elders of the congregation shall lay their hands upon the head of the bullock before the Lord, and the bullock shall be killed before the Lord. Leviticus 4:16, and the priest that is anointed shall bring of the bullock's blood to the tabernacle of the congregation. Look at the hierarchy here. When the whole congregation is in a state of error, the elders, Zakon, Yud, Mem, have to step up. In the master engineer's organizational chart, the elders are the system administrators. They are the ones responsible for the governance of the network. If the people are ignorant, it's because the elders failed to distribute the manual. The text says they lay their hands upon the head of the bullock. This is a multi-point data transfer. It's not just one priest now. It's the collective leadership executing a biometric handshake. They are taking the national debt, the accumulated system errors of millions of Israelites, and they are offloading that corrupted data onto the sacrificial hardware. Let's break down elders. Zakon, Yud, Mem in the Paleo Hebrew. Zayin, the tool that provides or protects. The cycle or the gathering. The transmission. The deed. The massive flow. The elders are the weapons of the gathering that continue the work of the mighty flow. They are supposed to be the structural supports of the nation. When they lay hands on that bullock, they are admitting that the mighty flow of the nation has become chaos because of their lack of oversight. This aligns with the book of Jasher, chapter 88, where it describes how the elders of Israel had to lead the people in repentance when they strayed. History shows us that whenever the elders sold out, the nation went into system shutdown. Think about the Council of Nicaea in 325 CE. Those weren't our elders. Those were serpent seed infiltrators led by Constantine, a sun-worshipping bastard who rewrote the operating system of the church to include pagan malware like the Trinity and Easter. Our real elders were being hunted, slaughtered, and driven into the mountains of Africa in the caves of the earth, while these frauds were laying hands on a counterfeit gospel. The bullock is killed before Yah. The hardware is terminated. Then the anointed priest takes the blood, the source code, back into the tabernacle. This is the recovery phase. You can't just kill the animal and walk away. you have to take the life code and re-inject it into the sanctuary to stabilize the environment. Israel, look at your quote-unquote elders today. Look at these quote-unquote civil rights leaders and these quote-unquote mega-church pastors. Are they laying hands on the truth, or are they laying hands on the quote-unquote Democratic Party and the quote-unquote United Nations? They are leading you into a permanent system crash. They have abandoned the quote-unquote tabernacle for the quote-unquote state house. And that is why our people are still catching hell in every city on this flat earth. Verses 17 through 18. Rekeying the firewall. Leviticus 4:17. And the priest shall dip his finger in some of the blood and sprinkle it 7 times before the Lord, even before the veil. Leviticus 4:18. And he shall put some of the blood upon the horns of the altar, which is before the Lord, that is in the tabernacle of the congregation, and shall pour out all the blood at the bottom of the altar of the burnt offering, which is at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. We see the frequency of 7 again. Sprinkle it 7 times. This is a full disc defragmentation. The priest is clearing the veil, the firewall of the national guilt. Every sprinkle is a pulse of energy hitting the barrier, resetting the permissions. Why the veil? Because the veil is what separates the user interface from the kernel. If the veil is dirty with the frequency of sin, the prayers of the nation can't reach the core processor. The connection is timed out. Then he puts blood on the hums of the altar. As we establish, these are the resonance antennas. By putting the blood of the national sacrifice on these horns, the priest is rekeying the encryption. He is telling the system, the national ID is now verified. The debt is covered. Open the channel. Let's look at the word sprinkle, Naza, the transmission, the precision strike, the manifestation. Sprinkling is a precision strike of life that reveals the truth. It's not a messy splash. It's a controlled application of the blood code. This engineering protocol was stolen and bastardized by the Roman Catholic Church. They took the sprinkling and turned it into holy water bullshit, where they flick water at you to bless you. That is a counterfeit protocol. Water doesn't carry the life code. Blood does. They took the technical specification for biometric authentication and turned it into a religious magic trick to keep you stupid and subservient to their pope, who is nothing but a high-level agent of the serpent seed. The rest of the blood is poured at the bottom of the altar. This is the ground that we talked about. You are dumping the static charge of the nation's sin into the earth. If you don't ground that energy, the tabernacle becomes an electrical hazard. The presence of Yah is high voltage. If the environment isn't properly grounded with the blood of the sacrifice, the first person who touches the furniture is going to get vaporized. Remember what happened to Uzzah in 2 Samuel chapter 6. He touched the ark, the high-capacity capacitor, without the proper grounding and without the authorized priestly insulation. The system arced through his body and terminated him on the spot. Yah isn't mean, he is consistent. If you violate the physics of the holy, you pay the price in flesh. Verse 19, the extraction of the power cell. Leviticus 4:19, and he shall take all his fat from him and burn it upon the altar. The fat, Chaleb, the energy reserve. Even for the national sin, Yah demands the fuel. He wants the best part of the national resource. In a national sense, the fat represents the wealth and strength of Israel. When we were in our right minds, we gave our best to the service of the Most High. We built the temple with gold and cedar. We dedicated our first fruits. We were the power plant of the earth. But look at us now. We are giving our fat to the heathen. We are giving our best athletes, our best musicians, our best inventors, and our best labor to build Babylon's infrastructure. We are fueling their altar while our own tabernacle is in ruins. The word burn here is kata, the transformation, the signature, resh, the primary source. To burn the fat is to transform the covenant for the head. It is an energy up conversion. You are taking physical fat and turning it into frequency, smoke, for the master engineer. If you don't give Yah the fat, the altar goes cold. And when the altar goes cold, the protection field drops. This is exactly what happened during the Greek occupation under Antiochus Epiphanes in the 2nd century BCE. The book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 1, records how he stopped the daily sacrifice and set up the abomination of desolation. He cut the power supply to the nation. He stopped the fat from burning. And because the frequency was lost, the wall of fire around Jerusalem was breached and our people were slaughtered like dogs in the streets. You think it's a coincidence that our neighborhoods are war zones today? It's because there is no spiritual power generation happening. We aren't burning the fat for Yah. We're frying the fat for our own bellies and giving our strength to Esau's system. The firewall is down, and the viruses, the gangs, the drugs, the police are walking right through the gate. Verse 20, the completion of the atonement cycle. Leviticus 4:20, and he shall do with the bullock as he did with the bullock for a sin offering. So shall he do with this, and the priest shall make an atonement for them, and it shall be forgiven them. As he did, so shall he do. This is the standard operating procedure, SOP. Yah is a God of consistency. He doesn't change the patch because it's a different day. The protocol for the priest, the core, is the same as the protocol for the congregation, the network. The result? The priest shall make an atonement, kapar, for them. Atonement is the most misunderstood word in the English language. People think it means, I'm sorry. No. In engineering terms, kapar is a coating or a sealant. It's the same word used for the pitch that Nunket used to seal the ark. Let's break down atonement. Kapar, the vessel, the edge. Resh, the source. Kapar is the covering of the edge by the authority. It is a protective layer. When the priest makes atonement, he is applying a spiritual sealant over the nation's leaks. He is patching the holes in the hull so the waters of chaos don't drown the people. And then the system status changes. It shall be forgiven, salak, them. Forgiven isn't a feeling. It is a status update. It means the debt has been cleared from the ledger. The system error has been resolved. The network is now back in good standing. Let's look at forgiven, salak. The protection, lamed, staff/authority. The instruction, the separation. To be forgiven is to have the support of authority in the inner room. It means you are back inside the secure perimeter. Israel, we haven't been in a state of quote-unquote forgiveness as a nation for a long damn time. We have been, quote, uncovered. We have been leaking. We have been sinking. Why? Because we stopped following the SOP. We started following the SOP of the heathen. We started doing as the Romans do and as the Greeks do. This is why the New Testament, quote-unquote, is so critical. Yad Hey-Wah Shin Ayin came to be the ultimate kapar. He didn't come to, quote-unquote, start a new religion. He came to execute the final system restore. He applied his own blood to the quote-unquote veil of the heavens to reopen the connection for the quote-unquote lost sheep of the house of Israel. But you can't access that forgiveness if you are still running the old malware. You have to repent, which means reboot. You have to shut down the worldly system and restart with the Torah system. If you try to run Yah's blood on Babylon's OS, the system is going to reject the patch. Verse 21, the final purge of the national carcass. Leviticus 4:21, and he shall carry forth the bullock without the camp and burn him as he burned the first bullock. It is a sin offering for the congregation. The final purge. Just like the priest's bullock, the national bullock must go without the camp. This is the total system flush. You cannot leave the evidence of the sin inside the holy environment. The carcass of our national failure has to be removed. Think about the history of our people. When we sinned at Sinai with the golden calf, what did Memshin do? He ground that calf into powder, put it in the water, and made the people drink their own dung. He was forcing the system purge. He was making them digest the consequences of their ignorance. When we sinned in the wilderness, Yah let a whole generation rot without the camp. Their bodies were the carcass that had to be disposed of before the new system, the next generation, could enter the clean place, the promised land. The text says, burn him as he burned the first bullock. This is recursive logic. The engineer uses the same subroutine for every level of the hierarchy. Whether it's the core or the network, the waste must be incinerated. This aligns with the book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 15, where it describes the burning of the nations that oppress Israel. But before Yah burns the nations, he has to purge his own house. Look at the so-called Negro today. We are being burned in the camps of the nations. We are in the projects, the favelas, the ghettos. These are the places of ashes outside the camp of global prosperity. We are the carcass of a nation that failed its technical specifications. But there is a prophetic twist. The clean place where the ashes are poured out is also the place of resurrection. In Yod Ket Zayin, Kof Aleph Lamed, Ezekiel, chapter 37, Yah takes the prophet to a valley of dry bones, a place of ashes outside the camp. And what does he do? He speaks the source code, the word, over the carcass. He commands the breath, the spirit, the signal to enter the dry bones. And the carcass stands up. It becomes an exceeding great army. The sin offering for the congregation is what makes this resurrection possible. Without the burning, there is no clean place. Without the clean place, there is no standing up. Israel, you are in the ash heap right now. You are being burned by the heathen. You are being carried forth as a byword and a proverb. But don't you see? This is the final phase of the purge. Yah is getting the dung out of the nation. He is burning off the ignorance. He is preparing the ashes to be the soil for the new kingdom. But you have to recognize the bullock. You have to recognize that your identity is the sacrifice. You have to stop trying to fix the carcass and start looking for the resurrection signal. The serpent seed thinks they've won. They look at our dead body in the streets of Babylon, America / the world system, and they rejoice and send gifts. Revelation chapter 11. They think the carcass is just trash to be disposed of. But they don't know the master engineer's secrets. They don't know that the ashes of Israel carry the DNA of the covenant. They don't know that when the 3.5 days, the prophetic time of our captivity, are over, the spirit of life is going to hit those ashes like a lightning strike. And when we stand up, the camp of the nations is going to be the one that gets burned. Do you see the receipts yet? From the Council of Nicaea to the transatlantic slave trade, the serpent seed has been trying to dispose of the Israelite bullock. They've been trying to hide the sin and bury the identity. But the elders are waking up. The hands are being laid on the truth. The blood is hitting the veil. In part 4, we're going to look at the ruler. We're going to see what happens when the political leadership sins. We're going to see the kid of the goats and why the male is required for the power structure. Don't you dare tune out. We are halfway through the schematic, and the voltage is only going up. Now, in part 4, we are going to look at the governance layer and how the, quote, rulers of Israel are held to a higher standard of integrity. Part 4, the Hego Protocol and the corruption of power. The national system we just broke down covers the collective network. But now the master engineer is zooming in on the individual nodes of authority. Because when the leader's internal logic fails, it creates a localized power surge that can fry the surrounding circuits. We are moving from the high-level processing of the priest and the congregation down to the hardware level of the ruler and the common people. Verses 22 through 23. The ruler's logic, gate failure. Leviticus 4:22. When a ruler hath sinned and done somewhat through ignorance against any of the commandments of the Lord his God concerning things which should not be done, and is guilty. Leviticus 4:23. Or if his sin, wherein he hath sinned, come to his knowledge, he shall bring his offering, a kid of the goats, a male without blemish. Look at the word ruler here. In the Hebrew, it's na-shi. Let's break that down in the Paleo Hebrew. Nun plus shin plus aleph. The transmission of the line. Shin, the power that consumes or presses. Aleph, the primary authority. Literally, a nashi is the strength of the seed that consumes. A ruler is an amplifier. In an electrical circuit, an amplifier takes a small signal and makes it massive. If the input signal is holy, the ruler amplifies righteousness across the nation. But if the ruler has a sin of ignorance, a logic gate failure, he amplifies that corruption. He is a load-bearing column in the social architecture. If that column has a hairline fracture, the whole damn roof is coming down on your head. Yah specifies the hardware for this fix. A kid of the goats, a male without blemish. Why goat and why male? In the master engineer's biological classification, the goat, Sa'ir, represents turbulence and friction. Let's break down Sa'ir, goat. Shin, teeth/consume, plus ayin, eye/experience, plus yod, hand/work, plus resh, head/beginning. It is the consuming experience of the working head. Goats are stubborn, they are climbers, and they are aggressive. This matches the frequency of governance. To rule, you have to have a certain level of friction to push back against the chaos. But notice, it must be a male. In engineering, the male connector is the signal transmitter, the one that inserts the data. The female is the receptive port. Because a ruler is a transmitter of law and authority, his system error must be patched with a transmitting surrogate. This establishes the doctrine of positional responsibility. Yah doesn't treat the ruler like the common person. The ruler's sin is a high voltage error. This aligns with Ezekiel chapter 34 verse 2, where Yah screams at the shepherds of Israel for feeding themselves while the flock starves. Those shepherds are the Nashi. They are the ones who turn the amplifier of their office into a vacuum to suck the resources out of the people. Modern day application, look at these kings and presidents and community leaders. They are all guilty as hell. They are running on a corrupted OS of greed and narcissism. They think because they have a title, they can bypass the commandments of the Most High. But Yah says, the moment that sin comes to his knowledge, the moment the diagnostic tool flags the error, he has to bring the sacrifice. If you are a leader in Israel, whether you're a head of a household or a teacher of the word, and you're out here living like a damn heathen, you are introducing signal noise into the lives of everyone under you. You are a ruler in your sphere, and your ignorance is costing people their lives. You better find a male without blemish, which we know is Yod He Wah Shin Ayin, Jesus, and apply that patch before the engineer decides to decommission your entire station. Verse 24, the termination of the surrogate signal. Leviticus 4:24, and he shall lay his hand upon the head of the goat and kill it in the place where they killed the burnt offering before the Lord. It is the sin offering. Here's the biometric link again. The ruler lays his hand on the goat's head. This is the data dump. He is offloading the static charge of his administrative failure onto the animal. But look at the location. In the place where they killed the burnt offering. This is a rabbit hole most of you miss. Why not the sin offering place? Because the burnt offering, the Olah, is the total ascension offering. It is the place of the highest thermal intensity. The ruler's sin requires a high temperature purge. Because he holds a head position, his surrogate, must be terminated at the primary input port of the altar. Let's look at burnt offering, Olah.
Ayin, the perception.
Lamed, staff / authority / instruction, the direction, the manifestation. The Olah is the experience of authority revealed. When the ruler kills the goat there, he is acknowledging that his authority was blind and needs to be reset by the fire of Yah. This is a hardware level termination. In computer engineering, if a peripheral device, the ruler, is causing the motherboard, the nation, to short circuit, you might have to kill the process or pull the component. The goat takes the termination signal so the ruler can stay on the network. But don't get it twisted. This is graphic. This isn't a prayer of confession. This is a man grabbing a screaming goat by the throat, feeling his hot breath on his hands, and plunging a blade into his jugular. The blood sprays, the animal kicks, the bowels release. The stench of death fills his nostrils. Yah wants the ruler to feel the cost of his ignorance. He wants him to see the life code, the blood pouring out onto the dirt because he was too damn stupid or arrogant to follow the manual. Israel, we are a nation of rulers who have forgotten how to kill the goat. We want the power without the sacrifice. We want to lead without the blood. But the master engineer says if there's no data transfer to the surrogate, the termination signal stays on you. That's why our leaders keep dropping dead of stress, heart attacks, and accidents. The system is trying to purge the error, and since they won't use the sin offering, Yod, He, Wah, Shin, Ayin, the system is purging them. Verse 25, recalibrating the external interface. Leviticus 4:25, and the priest shall take of the blood of the sin offering with his finger, and put it upon the horns of the altar of burnt offering, and shall pour out his blood at the bottom of the altar of burnt offering. Now notice the technical shift here. For the priest and the whole congregation, verses 7 and 18, the blood went on the altar of incense, the internal signal transmitter. But for the ruler, the blood goes on the horns of the altar of burnt offering, the external power port. Why the change? This is network architecture. The priest and the congregation interface with the software/spirit layer, incense. But the ruler interfaces with the hardware/physical layer, burnt offering. The ruler's job is the external governance of the camp. His sin affects the physical infrastructure. By putting blood on the horns of the burnt offering altar, the priest is recalibrating the ruler's external interface. He is cleaning the antennas of the physical administration. Let's look at the word horns. The cycle, the source, the transmission. The horns are the cycles of the head that continue the life. They are the power terminals. If the ruler's sin has corroded these terminals, the power of Yah cannot flow through his leadership. The blood acts as a conductive cleaner. It removes the oxidation of sin so the current can flow again. Then the rest of the blood is poured at the bottom, the grounding. This aligns with Psalm chapter 2, verse 10. Be wise now, therefore, O ye kings. Be instructed, ye judges of the earth. Yah is telling the rulers that their power is not their own. They are just conduits. If the conduit is dirty, the master engineer will short circuit the whole damn operation. Israel, you need to understand that your leaders are the reason the power is out in our community. They have corroded terminals. They are trying to run the nation on pagan AC current instead of Torah DC current. And because they haven't applied the blood to the horns, the signal is dead. We are screaming for justice and equality, but the system can't hear us because the interface is broken. We need a national recon. We need to get back to the altar of burnt offering and stop trying to negotiate with the serpent seed for a patch they don't even have. Verse 26, the thermal energy conversion of authority. Leviticus 4:26, and he shall burn all his fat upon the altar, as the fat of the sacrifice of peace offerings. And the priest shall make an atonement for him as concerning his sin, and it shall be forgiven him. The fat, Chaleb, the energy reserves of the ruler. Yah demands the stored potential of the leadership. When a ruler sins, he has usually been feeding himself. He has been accumulating fat, wealth, influence, ego, at the expense of the system. Yah says, take all that fat and put it in the incinerator. This is a thermal energy conversion. The fat of the ruler is converted into the sweet savor of submission. Notice it says, as the fat of the sacrifice of peace offerings. This is a cross-reference to Leviticus chapter 3. The peace offering, Shilamim, is the offering of system harmony. By comparing the ruler's sin offering to a peace offering, Yah is saying that the goal of this patch is to restore network equilibrium. Break down peace offering, Shilamim, the destruction of the old. Lamed, staff/authority, the new instruction. The mighty flow, the deed, the final fullness. A peace offering is the destruction of chaos through the authority of the mighty hand. When the ruler's fat is burned, the atonement, kapar, is made. The sealing is applied. The leak in the leadership is plugged, and he is forgiven, salak. His status is restored to active. This aligns with Proverbs chapter 29, verse 2. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. The righteous ruler is the one who has had his fat burned. He is the one who has no ego left to fuel his own agenda. He is a pure conduit for the engineer's will. But look at our leaders today. They are obese with pride. They are fat with the lies of the nations. They refuse to go to the altar. They want to keep their fat and their sin and still be called honorable. Yah says, I'm going to burn you and your fat together if you don't follow the protocol. The atonement for a ruler is a total ego death. If you aren't willing to be incinerated for the sake of the nation, you have no business holding the staff. Verse 27, the common node system error. Leviticus 4:27. And if any one of the common people sin through ignorance, while he doeth somewhat against any of the commandments of the Lord concerning things which ought not to be done, and be guilty. Now we get to the end users, the common people. In the Hebrew, this is Haaretz, the people of the earth. Let's break down people. Ayin, experience, plus Mem, the experience of the mighty flow. The common people are the massive data stream of the nation. They are the ones living out the code on the ground level. Yah is showing us that ignorance is systemic. It doesn't just stay at the top. It trickles down into every common node. You Negroes in the street, you sisters in the kitchen, you brothers on the job, you think because you aren't a priest or a ruler that you don't have to know the manual? You think you can just follow the leader, and if the leader is wrong, it's on him? Hell no. Yah says, if any one of the common people sin, he is guilty. The engineer doesn't care if your pastor told you it was okay to eat that shrimp scampi. He doesn't care if your mama told you that Sunday is the Sabbath. If you violate the technical specifications of the Torah, you have introduced corruption into your own biological hardware. You are a faulty node on the network. The word guilty, ashamim, means you are carrying the strength of destruction. You are a walking system crash. This aligns with Leviticus chapter 5, verse 17. Though he wished it not, yet is he guilty. Think about a virus on a computer. Does the computer care if you didn't know that link was malicious? No, the virus executes the code, encrypts your files, and shuts down your system. The sin of ignorance is a malicious script that you ran because you were too lazy to read the security briefing. Israel, we are a nation of common people who are guilty of everything from idolatry to adultery, and we're sitting around wondering why our hard drives are failing. We're wondering why our memory is gone. We're wondering why we can't connect to the server. It's because you are infected. And the only way to clean the system is to follow the common node protocol. Verse 28, the female receptive patch. Leviticus 4:28. Or if his sin, which he have sinned, come to his knowledge, then he shall bring his offering, a kid of the goats, a female without blemish, for his sin, which he have sinned. When the sin come to his knowledge, the diagnostic alert, the moment you realize you've been living a lie, the moment you see that Christmas is just Saturnalia with a white Jesus mask on it, you are required to act. But look at the hardware requirement for the quote, common person. A kid of the goats, a female without blemish. Wait, the ruler had to bring a male, but the common person brings a female. Why the change in gendered engineering? In the master engineer's design, the common people represent the receptive body of the nation. They are the ones who receive the instruction from the rulers and the priests. In engineering terms, they are the input ports. A female sacrifice represents the receptive node. The sin of a common person is usually a failure of reception. They received the wrong signal, ignorance, and executed it. To patch a reception error, you need a receptive surrogate. Let's look at female. None, the continuation. The cycle. Bet, house/inside, the interior. The manifestation. A nekeba is the vessel that reveals the life of the house. She is the container. By bringing a female goat, the common person is admitting that their container was full of garbage data. They are offloading their garbage onto the female goat to purge the vessel. This is a rabbit hole for the students. Why a goat for the common person, but a lamb is also an option later? Because a goat, Sair, represents the friction of the flesh. Most common sins are sins of the appetite, eating what you want, sleeping with who you want, doing what feels good. The goat frequency matches the fleshly error. Just aligns with Matthew chapter 25, verse 33, where Yad Hey Wal Shin Ayin says, he will set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. The goats are the ones who follow their own fleshly logic instead of the master's code. If you are a common person in Israel, you better stop being a goat. You better stop being stubborn and aggressive against the Torah. You better realize that your vessel is leaking and you need the female without blemish, the pure receptive signal of the spirit to seal the holes. The serpent seed has taught you that grace means you don't have to do anything. That is malware. Grace is the time window Yah gives you to bring the offering once the sin comes to your knowledge. If the window closes and you haven't applied the patch, you are going to be deleted from the book of life. Do you feel the voltage yet? We've seen the core processor, priest, the network, congregation, the amplifier, ruler, and now the input node, common person. Every layer of the system has a specific patch protocol. In part 5, we're going to see the final execution. We're going to see the laying of the hand for the individual and the sweet savor that finally stabilizes the entire national grid. Now in part 5, we are going to look at the individual responsibility and the final signal authentication that closes the sin offering loop. Part 5, the final patch and the sweet savor of system restoration. The individual node protocol for the common people is the final layer of the master engineer's security update, ensuring that even the smallest component in the Israelite network is purged of the ignorance that causes a total system crash. We've seen the high voltage requirements for the priest and the ruler, but now we look at the precision calibration required for the common soul to stay connected to the source. Verse 29, the manual override of the common soul. Leviticus 4:29, and he shall lay his hand upon the head of the sin offering and slay the sin offering in the place of the burnt offering. Look at the repetition of the protocol. Yah is a God of standard operating procedures. Whether you are a high-level administrator or a common end user, the biometric handshake is the same. You have to lay your hand upon the head. This is the manual override. You are taking personal responsibility for the malware you allowed into your system. You can't blame the ruler or the priest anymore. Once the sin is known, the data transfer is your job. Let's break down sin offering in Paleo Hebrew. Ka ta'at. Ket, fence / inner room / separate, to protect or divide. Tat, basket / coil / surround, to contain or store. Aleph, ox / strength / leader, the primary power. The signature. Literally, kata'at is the separated container of the primary strength of the covenant. The sin offering is the storage device for the error. It holds the strength of the transgression so the soul doesn't have to. Notice the location again, in the place of the burnt offering. Just like the ruler, the common person must execute the termination at the primary power port. Why? Because every soul in Israel is a power generator. You aren't just a member of a church. You are a node in a global energy grid. If your node is dirty, it affects the resonance of the whole nation. This aligns with Romans chapter 12, verse 1, where Shin Aleph Wa Lamed tells us to present our bodies as a living sacrifice. He's not being poetic. He's referencing the engineering specifications of Leviticus. You have to slay your fleshly desires at the altar of the Torah. You have to terminate the goat nature, that stubborn, climbing, arrogant, me-first attitude, so the holy signal can pass through you. Israel, you dumbass Negroes think you can just believe and keep your goat alive. You think you can keep your stubbornness and your pride and still be part of the kingdom. Yah says, no, slay that shit. If you don't kill the goat will eventually trip the circuit breaker on your life. You will be disconnected from the life force of the Most High. And once that battery runs out, you are just a piece of dead hardware waiting for the incinerator. Verse 30, the finger of authentication. Leviticus 4:30, and the priest shall take of the blood thereof with his finger and put it upon the horns of the altar of burnt offering, and shall pour out all the blood thereof at the bottom of the altar. The priest uses his finger. In the master engineer's biometric system, the finger is the stylus. It is the tool of precision application. He doesn't just throw the blood at the altar. He applies it to the horns, the antennas. This is signal tuning. The common person's frequency has been noisy because of their ignorance. The blood, the life code, is applied to the power terminals to filter the noise. Let's look at finger, etzbah. Aleph, the primary force. Day, the direction. Bet, the interior. Ayin, the perception. The finger is the primary strength that hooks the experience of the house. It is how the priest directs the energy. When the blood hits the horns, the authentication protocol is complete. The common node is now verified. The system sees the life code and recognizes the user ID. Then, the grounding happens at the bottom of the altar. This is exactly how your smartphones work. You have a fingerprint sensor or a Face ID. If the biometrics don't match the stored code, access is denied. Yah's the one who engineered biometrics. He's been using DNA-based security clearance since the tabernacle. If you try to access his presence without the blood of the covenant, the firewall will reject you. This aligns with Way Yik Resh Aleph, Leviticus, chapter 17, verse 11. For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make an atonement for your souls. The blood is the source code. It is the only thing that can patch the soul. Modern science is just now figuring out that blood carries genetic memory and frequency data. Yah knew it from the beginning. He's telling you, your system is corrupted. You need a code injection from a clean source to reset your parameters. If you reject the blood of Yod Hey Wah Shin Ayin, Jesus, the master patch, you are trying to run a crash system on empty. You are going to blue screen when the judgment hits, and there won't be any technical support to help your ass. Verse 31, the sweet savor of thermal equilibrium. Leviticus 4:31, and he shall take away all the fat thereof, as the fat is taken away from off the sacrifice of peace offerings. And the priest shall make an atonement for him, and it shall be forgiven him. The fat for a sweet savor. This is the output signal. When the fat, the stored energy, is burned, it creates a specific thermal signature. In the engineer's sensors, this signature is sweet. It means the combustion is clean. The error has been fully converted into energy. Notice the phrase, as the fat is taken away from off the sacrifice of peace offerings. As we established in part 4, the peace offering is about system harmony. Let's look at sweet savor. Resh, the source. The deed. Separation. None, seed/life. The continuation. The deed. The separation. The bridge. Cat, the final separation. The sweet savor is the source of the work that separates the life for the bridge of the inner room. It is the frequency of reconciliation. When you give Yah your fat, your best energy, your best time, your best resources, and you do it through the sin offering protocol, you are creating a resonance that the Father loves. You are telling the master engineer, I am no longer running my own fleshly programs. I am giving you the fuel of my life to run your programs. The result, the priest shall make an atonement, kapar, for him, and it shall be forgiven, salak, him. The sealant is applied. The status update is cleared. This aligns with Ephesians chapter 5, verse 2, where it says, Yod, Hey, Wah, Shin, Ayin, gave himself for us as an offering and a sacrifice to Yah for a sweet-smelling savor. Yod, Hey, Wah, Shin, Ayin was the ultimate thermal conversion. He took the heat of the Father's wrath and converted it into the sweet savor of our redemption. But you Christian motherfuckers think you can just smell the smoke without burning the fat. You want the forgiveness without the conversion. You want to keep your greed, your lust, and your pagan holidays and think Yah is pleased with your stinking ass prayers. Bullshit. If the fat isn't on the altar, the favor is riding. It's the smell of a carcass instead of a sacrifice. And Yah has a very specific way of dealing with rotten signals. He purges them. Verses 32 through 33. The lamb option and the low voltage patch. Leviticus 4:32. And if he bring a lamb for a sin offering, he shall bring it a female without blemish. Leviticus 4:33. And he shall lay his hand upon the head of the sin offering and slay it for a sin offering in the place where they killed the burnt offering. Now Yah gives an alternative hardware specification. A lamb. Why a lamb instead of a goat? In the engineer's biological archetypes, the goat is friction, but the lamb, K-Bay-Set, is submission. Let's break down lamb, K-Bay-Set. The vessel. Bet, house/inside. The interior. Shin, the destruction of the old. The signature. The lamb is the vessel of the house that consumes the covenant. It is the low resistance component. Some of you have goat sins, sins of rebellion, sins of climbing where you don't belong. But some of you have lamb sins, sins of passivity, sins of following the wrong flock into ignorance. Yah says, match the hardware to the error. If your sin was passive ignorance, just doing what everyone else did because you didn't know better, you bring the lamb. It's a low voltage patch for a common error, but the protocol is the same. lay his hand, slay it in the place of the burnt offering. This is the universal law of substitution. Something has to die to pay for the system error. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed. The debt of your sin is a form of negative energy in the system. To neutralize that negative, you have to have a positive discharge of life force. This aligns with Yah, Shin, Ayin, Yad, Hey, Wah. Isaiah chapter 53, verse 7. He was led as a lamb to the slaughter. Yad, Hey, Wah, Shin, Ayin was the perfect lamb hardware. He had zero resistance to the Father's will. He allowed his system to be terminated so our passive ignorance could be patched. But don't think for a second that the lamb is weak. In the master engineer setup, the lamb is the most powerful tool because it is the only one that can bypass the firewall of pride. If you come to Yah as a goat, he will butt heads with you until you break. But if you come as a lamb, submitting to the code, he will open the gate. Verses 34 through 35, the final authentication and the closing of the loop. Leviticus 4:34, and the priest shall take of the blood of the sin offering with his finger, and put it upon the horns of the altar of burnt offering, and shall pour out all the blood thereof at the bottom of the altar. Leviticus 4:35, and he shall take away all the fat thereof, as the fat of the lamb is taken away from the sacrifice of the peace offerings, and the priest shall make an atonement for his sin that he hath committed, and it shall be forgiven him. We see the final redundancy. Yah repeats the finger, the horns, the grounding, and the fat for the lamb. In engineer, redundancy is the duplication of critical components or functions of a system with the intention of increasing reliability. Yah is repeating the protocol to show you that the standard is absolute. It doesn't matter if it's a bullock, a goat, or a lamb. The blood code must hit the horns, and the fat must hit the fire. The priest shall make an atonement, and it shall be forgiven. This is the closing of the loop. The sin offering cycle is now complete. The system error that started in verse 2 has been fully resolved by verse 35. Let's look at the word committed. Katai, the division. Tet, basket/coil, the containment. Aleph, it's the power. To commit a sin is to separate the strength into a coil. It is a short circuit. You've taken the power Yah gave you and you've coiled it around your own desires, creating a hot spot that burns out the components. The atonement uncoils the energy. It straightens the path. It restores the linear flow of the spirit. This aligns with Revelation chapter 5, verse 6, where the prophet sees a lamb as it had been slain, standing in the midst of the throne. That lamb is the permanent patch. He is the hardware that stays terminated in the spiritual realm, so the software of the covenant can keep running for Israel. Israel, we are at the end of the quote, technical manual for the sin offering. You had the blueprints. You had the specifications. You had the diagnostic tools. The question is, what are you going to do with the dung? Are you going to keep carrying it inside the camp? Are you going to keep trying to perfume your ignorance with religious bullshit? Or are you going to drag your carcass to the clean place and let the fire of truth consume it? The master engineer is coming to do a final system audit. He is going to check every node. He is going to check every horn. He is going to check every fat reserve. If he finds malware in your system, if he finds pagan frequencies in your heart, he's going to format your drive. He's going to erase your identity and throw your hardware into the lake of fire, which is the ultimate system purge. But if he finds the blood of the lamb on your horns, if he finds that you have terminated your goat nature and submitted to the Torah code, he will upgrade your system. He will give you a new body, a high-performance machine that can handle the high voltage of his eternal presence. The choice is yours, Israel. You can be a functional component in the kingdom, or you can be electronic waste in the ash heap. The altar call, patching the ignorance of the scattered nodes. Listen to me, you scattered nodes of Israel. We have spent this entire episode decoding the sin of ignorance. We have looked at the blood, the fat, the dung, and the horns. We have seen that Yah is not a polite religious figure. He is the master engineer of reality, and his laws are the operating system of your life. If you have been listening to this, and the diagnostic tool of the Spirit has flagged an error in your life, if you realize you've been living in systemic ignorance of the Sabbath, the dietary laws, or your own identity, then this is your maintenance window. You need to repent. And I don't mean that I'm sorry bullshit you say in church. I mean a total system reboot. 1. Acknowledge the bug. Stop making excuses for your, quote, ignorance. Stop saying, God knows my heart. God knows your heart is full of malware. Admit that you have been violating the, quote, technical specifications, quote, of the Torah. 2. Apply the patch. Lay your hand on the head of Yad-Hey Washin Ayin. Accept that he is the only authorized surrogate for your system errors. Stop trying to fix yourself with self-help or psychology. You need a code injection from the source. 3. Burn the fat. Give Yah your best. Stop giving him your leftovers. Stop giving him the scraps of your time and your money. Put your ego and your ambition on the altar and let the fire of purpose consume them. 4. Dispose of the dung. Take the filth of your old life, the gossip, the lust, the pagan traditions, and drag them outside the camp. Don't try to sanctify your Christmas tree. Don't try to bless your pork chops. Burn that shit. If you are ready to rekey your connection to the Father, then do it now. Don't wait for Sunday. Don't wait for a conference. Establish a secure network connection right where you are. Tell the master engineer, Father, I was ignorant, but now I see the code. Apply the blood. Reset my parameters. Restore my node to the national grid. And for those of you who choose to stay in your, quote, ignorance, those of you who want to keep running your, quote, corrupted scripts, know this. The system audit is already underway. The firewall is closing. When the master engineer hits the delete key, there will be no undo button. You will be wiped from the server of the living, and your ashes will be the only thing left in the clean place. Wake up, Israel. The sealed scrolls are open, and the manual is in your hands. Stop playing religion and start practicing engineering. I want to thank all of you for tuning in to this 5-part journey through Leviticus chapter 4. This has been a heavy download, but it's the meat that will make you strong for the days ahead. Share this episode with every scattered node you know. Let the signal go forth until the whole congregation is patched and ready for the return of the King. This is your brother Betsadeh Lamed Aleph Lamed, signing off from Yah First Ministries. Keep your horns clean, keep your fat burning, and for Yah's sake, read the damn manual. Peace, blessings, and total system restored to the chosen seed. We'll see you in the next investigation. Yah first, always.
Mm-hmm.